Welcome, English learners, to Unlock Your English. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating and often challenging aspect of the English language, phrasal verbs. If you've been learning English for any length of time, you've undoubtedly encountered them. Those perplexing combinations of a verb and a preposition, or adverb, or sometimes both, that seem to defy logical explanation. Think about give up, look after, turn down, or break down. Individually, the words are simple, but together they create an entirely new meaning, often unrelated to their constituent parts. Why are phrasal verbs so important for you? Our dedicated Unlock Your English audience? Because they are the lifeblood of authentic everyday English. Native speakers use them constantly, often unconsciously, in conversations, casual writing, and even more formal contexts. Without a solid grasp of phrasal verbs, your English, no matter how grammatically correct, will often sound stilted, overly formal, or simply unnatural. You might find yourself understanding individual words in a sentence, but completely missing the nuance or true intent due to an unfamiliar phrasal verb. This isn't just about expanding your vocabulary. It's about unlocking a deeper understanding of English idiomaticity, rhythm, and natural expression. Mastering phrasal verbs is a significant step towards achieving native-like fluency, allowing you to not only comprehend, but also produce English that sounds genuinely authentic. It's about bridging the gap between textbook English and the dynamic, living language spoken by millions around the world. For many learners, phrasal verbs represent a significant hurdle. They are numerous, their meanings can be highly contextual, and their particle choices often seem arbitrary. This article aims to demystify them, providing you with a comprehensive understanding of their origins, their impact on the language, and actionable strategies to conquer them. By the end of this deep dive, you'll not only appreciate the power of phrasal verbs, but also feel equipped to integrate them confidently into your own English repertoire, truly unlocking your potential. Historical development and evolution, a journey from Germanic roots to modern complexity. The widespread use of phrasal verbs is a distinctive feature of the English language, setting it apart from many Romance languages, which often rely more on single-word verbs, derived from Latin. To truly appreciate their significance, we must journey back through the annals of linguistic history, tracing their evolution from the earliest forms of English. Old English, the foundations of verb-particle combinations. The roots of what we now call phrasal verbs lie deep in Old English, the Germanic language spoken from roughly the 5th to the 11th centuries. Old English, like its Germanic cousins, such as modern German and Dutch, was rich in separable verb-particle combinations. In Old English, prefixes were commonly attached to verbs to modify their meaning. For example, the Old English verb bearen meant to carry. Adding a prefix like for could create forbearan, meaning to endure or to restrain. These prefixes often indicated direction, completion, or intensity. Crucially, in Old English, these prefixes often remained attached to the verb, especially in verb final sentence structures. However, there was already a nascent tendency for these prefixes to become more independent, acting almost like adverbs or prepositions that could appear after the verb. This phenomenon was part of a broader linguistic shift in English from a primarily object-verb OV language to a more verb-object VO language, which allowed for greater flexibility in particle placement. Middle English, French influence, and the slow growth. The Norman conquest of 1066 brought about a profound transformation of the English language. French, the language of the conquerors, became the language of the court, law, and high culture. For several centuries, English existed in a diglossic relationship with French, with English primarily spoken by the common people. This period, known as Middle English, roughly 1100–1500, saw a significant influx of French and Latin vocabulary into English. Many sophisticated concepts and formal terms were introduced through these Romance languages. Interestingly, this external influence had a paradoxical effect on phrasal verbs. While the growth of new phrasal verbs may have slowed down as English adopted single word, Latinate equivalents, e.g., enter instead of come in, continue instead of go on, the Germanic backbone of the language, with its characteristic verb particle constructions, was simultaneously strengthened. Phrasal verbs remained prevalent in the informal, everyday speech of the majority. The preference for Latinate words in formal contexts and Germanic phrasal verbs in informal ones began to solidify during this time, a distinction that largely persists today. By the late Middle English period, particles that had once been inseparable, prefixes were increasingly acting as independent adverbs or prepositions, positioned after the verb. William Shakespeare, writing in early modern English, 1500 or 700, is a testament to the burgeoning use of phrasal verbs. Scholars have identified thousands of phrasal verbs in his plays, demonstrating their established presence and growing versatility in the language. Early modern and modern English, explosion and diversification. The early modern English period witnessed an explosion in the use and complexity of phrasal verbs. As English continued to evolve and its grammatical structure became more analytical, relying less on inflections and more on word order and auxiliary verbs, the flexibility of verb particle constructions proved incredibly useful. The 18th century marked a critical point, where phrasal verbs gained more formal recognition. Lexicographer Samuel Johnson, in his influential Dictionary of the English Language, 1755, meticulously noted and defined many phrasal verbs, lending them a degree of legitimacy in the academic sphere they had previously lacked. The 19th and 20th centuries saw their continued diversification and expansion. New phrasal verbs are constantly being coined, particularly in informal contexts, slang, and to describe new technologies and activities, e.g., log in, sign up, scroll down, power up. This ongoing dynamism is a hallmark of their vitality within the language. The term phrasal verb itself, though the concept existed for centuries, was only formally coined in 1925 by Logan Pearsall Smith in Words and Idioms. Today, phrasal verbs are an undeniable and indispensable part of both written and spoken English across all registers, though they are particularly dominant in informal communication. They are a testament to English's Germanic heritage and its remarkable capacity for conciseness, expressiveness, and idiomatic creativity. Their historical journey reflects the language's continuous evolution and its ability to adapt and innovate. Key aspects in current state: navigating the labyrinth of phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs, while ubiquitous, present a unique set of characteristics and challenges for English learners. Understanding these aspects is crucial for effective mastery. Structural varieties, two-part and three-part phrasal verbs. At their core, phrasal verbs are multi-word units acting as a single verb. They typically consist of verb plus particle, adverb. The particle functions as an adverb, modifying the verb's meaning. Example: she looked up the word in the dictionary. Looked up, Theirs researched. Example: the plane took off on time. Took off is departed. Verb plus particle, preposition. The particle functions as a preposition, taking an object. Example: he looks after his younger sister. Looks after, rears, takes care of. Example: she came across an old photo. Came across, not found by chance. Verb plus particle, adverb plus preposition. These are often called phrasal prepositional verbs and are less common but equally important. Example: I don't want to put up with his rude behavior. Put up with, tolerate. Example: we need to do away with these outdated regulations. Do away with, abolish, transitivity and separability, a crucial distinction. One of the most perplexing aspects of phrasal verbs is their transitivity, whether they take a direct object, and separability, whether the particle can be separated from the verb by the object. In transitive phrasal verbs, these verbs do not take a direct object. The verb and particle always stay together. Examples: the car broke down on the highway. The car broke something? No. He woke up early. He woke something? No. Sales have fallen off recently. Fallen off or decreased. Transitive phrasal verbs, separable. These verbs take a direct object, and the particle can be separated from the verb by the object. If the object is a pronoun, the particle must be separated. Examples: she picked up the book, or she picked the book up. She picked it up, not she picked up it. He turned down the offer, or he turned the offer down. He turned it down, not he turned down it. Transitive phrasal verbs, inseparable. These verbs take a direct object, but the particle cannot be separated from the verb by the object. The verb and particle always stay together, even with a pronoun object. Examples: he looks after his children, not he looks his children after. He looks after them, not he looks them after. I ran into an old friend yesterday. Ran into Ruiz met by chance, not I ran an old friend into. I ran into him yesterday, not I ran him into yesterday. Three-part phrasal verbs. These are always inseparable. The object always follows the preposition. Examples: I can't put up with this noise. Not I can't put this noise up with. I can't put up with it. Not I can't put it up with. We need to come up with a solution. Come up with plus think of. We need to come up with one. This distinction between separable and inseparable, especially with pronouns, is a common pitfall for learners and requires dedicated practice. Semantic opacity and multifunctionality. The challenge of meaning. Perhaps the most significant challenge with phrasal verbs is their semantic opacity, meaning that their overall meaning is often not derivable from the individual meanings of the verb and particle. This is where they function like idioms. Look up can mean to research, as in look up a word, or to improve, as in things are looking up. Take off can mean to depart, for a plane, to remove clothes, to succeed quickly, or to mimic someone. Get over can mean to recover from an illness, to overcome a difficulty, or to forget about something. This multifunctionality means that learning phrasal verbs isn't simply a matter of memorizing a list. It's about understanding the nuances of their meanings in various contexts. The same verb-particle combination can have multiple, sometimes vastly different definitions. Register and formality, when to use what. As mentioned in the historical overview, phrasal verbs often lean towards informal or colloquial language. They are incredibly common in everyday conversation, casual emails, and popular media. For instance, instead of saying, she investigated the matter, a native speaker might say, she looked into the matter. However, it's a misconception that phrasal verbs are always informal. Many phrasal verbs are perfectly acceptable in semi-formal, and even some formal contexts, especially in spoken English or less academic writing. For example, carry out, to perform a task, or point out, to indicate, are widely used and not considered informal. The key is to develop an awareness of the register. Often, there's a more formal, Latin-derived single-word equivalent that can be used instead of a phrasal verb. Come up with informal versus devise, formal. Go on, informal versus continue, formal. Put off, informal versus postpone, formal. Understanding this distinction allows learners to choose the appropriate level of formality for their communication. Overusing formal vocabulary can make spoken English sound unnatural, just as exclusively using phrasal verbs in an academic paper might be inappropriate. Current trends, new coinages, and digital influence. The English language is dynamic, and phrasal verbs continue to evolve. New phrasal verbs emerge constantly, especially with the rapid pace of technological change and the rise of digital communication. Log in, out, sign up, off, descroll up, down, boot up, down. But backup, data are all relatively recent coinages that have become indispensable. Phrasal verbs related to social media, such as post up a photo, tag along, or blow up a story going viral, reflect contemporary usage. The increasing global interconnectedness also means that certain phrasal verbs might gain traction or be used differently in various English-speaking regions. This ongoing evolution means that mastering phrasal verbs is not a static task. It requires continuous exposure and a willingness to learn new combinations as they arise. Challenges for English learners beyond memorization. The challenges for English learners are manifold. Sheer volume. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of phrasal verbs in common use, making comprehensive memorization daunting. Unpredictable meanings. The idiomatic nature means that guessing the meaning from the individual words is often impossible. Separability rules. The rules for separable versus inseparable verbs, especially with pronouns, are complex and frequently lead to errors. Contextual nuance. Understanding which meaning applies in a given context requires extensive exposure. Particle choice. Why turn up the volume but turn on the light? Why look up information but look for something lost? The particle choice can seem arbitrary. Pronunciation and stress. The stress pattern within a phrasal verb can sometimes shift depending on whether it's used transitively or intransitively, or whether the particle is emphasized. For instance, in "the plane took off," the stress is often on off. But if you say "I took my shoes off," the stress might be more distributed. Despite these challenges, the rewards of mastering phrasal verbs are immense, directly impacting one's ability to communicate fluently and naturally. Impact and significance. The unseen force of English communication. The impact of phrasal verbs on English language usage, learning, and even culture is profound. They are not merely grammatical curiosities. They are deeply woven into the fabric of the language, shaping its expressiveness, conciseness, and natural flow, enhancing naturalness and fluency. The most immediate and apparent impact of mastering phrasal verbs is the dramatic improvement in a learner's naturalness and fluency. Native speakers use phrasal verbs intuitively. When a non-native speaker uses them correctly, it signals a higher level of proficiency and a deeper immersion in the language. Conversely, avoiding them can make speech sound formal, academic, or simply off. Consider these comparisons. I resigned from my job. Correct but formal versus I quit my job. More natural, common phrasal verb. Could you please reduce the noise? Correct but slightly stiff versus could you please turn down the noise? More idiomatic. They discovered the truth. That formal versus they found out the truth. Common everyday usage. The ability to use phrasal verbs effortlessly demonstrates an understanding of the subtle nuances of English communication, moving beyond literal translations and into the realm of idiomatic expression. This is critical for achieving true fluency, where language production feels effortless and authentic. Conciseness and efficiency. Phrasal verbs often offer a remarkably concise and efficient way to convey complex ideas that might otherwise require longer, more cumbersome phrases. They compress meaning into compact units. Instead of "to consider something thoroughly," we say "think over." Instead of "to postpone," we say "put off." Instead of "to recover from an illness," we say "get over." Instead of "to meet someone unexpectedly," we say "run into." This conciseness contributes to the fast pace and economy of English, particularly in spoken communication. Speakers can convey a lot of information with fewer syllables, making conversations more fluid and dynamic. Expressiveness and nuance. Beyond conciseness, phrasal verbs significantly contribute to the expressiveness and nuance of English. A single verb can take on a multitude of meanings simply by changing the particle, allowing for a precise shade of meaning that a single word verb might not capture. Take the verb break. Break down. A machine stops working. To lose emotional control. to analyze something into parts. Break up, to end a relationship. To disperse, to chop into pieces. Break out, to escape, a war or disease beginning suddenly. Break in, to enter illegally, to wear something new to make it comfortable. Break off, to separate from a larger piece, to suddenly stop talking. Each phrasal verb with break has a distinct and often unrelated meaning, demonstrating the incredible versatility and expressive power that particles add to core verbs. This allows speakers to be highly specific, without resorting to overly complex vocabulary. Cultural significance, reflecting everyday life. Phrasal verbs are deeply embedded in English-speaking cultures. They appear in song lyrics, movie titles, common sayings, and everyday jokes. Understanding them isn't just about linguistic competence. It's also about cultural literacy. Phrases like hang out, to spend time casually, but chill out, to relax, or work out, to exercise or solve a problem, are commonplace and immediately evoke specific social activities or situations within English-speaking societies. Political discourse, business jargon, and even family interactions are replete with phrasal verbs that reflect shared experiences and understanding. Think of idioms built around phrasal verbs, such as blow up in someone's face, to have a plan go spectacularly wrong, or get carried away, to become overly excited or enthusiastic. These expressions are intrinsic to how native speakers articulate emotions and situations. For learners, grasping these cultural nuances through phrasal verbs allows for more authentic participation in English-speaking communities, moving beyond superficial communication to truly connect with native speakers on a deeper level. Impact on learning strategy. The pervasive nature of phrasal verbs means they fundamentally impact how English is learned and taught. Traditional vocabulary acquisition, often focused on single words, falls short when it comes to phrasal verbs. Learners must adopt strategies that emphasize contextual learning, pattern recognition, and exposure to authentic language. Reliance on dictionaries that provide comprehensive definitions and examples for each phrasal verb. Focus on understanding collocations, the natural pairing of words, and how phrasal verbs fit into these patterns, but the necessity of extensive listening and reading to encounter phrasal verbs in natural settings. Ultimately, neglecting phrasal verbs means accepting a perpetual ceiling on one's fluency and understanding of English as it is genuinely spoken and written. Their significance cannot be overstated for anyone aiming for advanced proficiency. Comparisons and divergent perspectives, unpacking the why and how. While phrasal verbs are integral to English, their prevalence and structure are not universal across all languages. Comparing them with other linguistic phenomena and exploring divergent perspectives on their learning can offer valuable insights. Phrasal verbs versus Latinate Romance-derived verbs, a choice of register. One of the most significant comparisons to make is between phrasal verbs and their single word, often Latinate or Romance-derived equivalents. As discussed, this distinction often boils down to register and formality. Phrasal verb, go on, informal, neutral. Latinate equivalent, continue, neutral, formal. Phrasal verb, put off, informal, neutral. Latinate equivalent, postpone, neutral, formal. Phrasal verb, find out, informal, neutral. Latinate equivalent, discover, ascertain, neutral, formal. Historically, after the Norman conquest, French and Latin were seen as more prestigious languages, and words derived from them became associated with formal, educated discourse. The Germanic phrasal verbs, on the other hand, remained the domain of everyday informal communication. This divide, while less rigid today, still influences word choice. Divergent perspective. Some argue that this distinction simplifies the issue. While many phrasal verbs do have more formal Latinate synonyms, not all do, And sometimes the phrasal verb carries a specific nuance that the single word cannot. For instance, give up, to surrender or quit, has a strong sense of yielding or abandoning effort that relinquish, to give up control, might not fully capture in all contexts. Similarly, put up with has no single word synonym that truly conveys the same sense of tolerance combined with mild exasperation. Furthermore, in contemporary English, the lines are blurring. Many phrasal verbs are now perfectly acceptable in mainstream media, business communication, and even academic writing, particularly when the tone aims for accessibility. The formal versus informal rule is a good general guideline, but context and common usage are increasingly paramount. Phrasal verbs versus verb compounds in other Germanic languages. English's abundant phrasal verbs are often contrasted with similar constructions in other Germanic languages like German and Dutch, which use separable prefixes. German, anrufen, to call. Ich rufe dich an. I call you up. Here, an is a separable prefix that moves to the end of the clause. Dutch, opstaan, to get up. Ik sta op. I get up. While structurally similar, English phrasal verbs are often more idiomatic and less predictable in meaning than their German or Dutch counterparts, where the particle often retains a clearer directional or aspectual meaning. In German, aufstehen consistently means to stand up or to get up. In English, stand up is one meaning, but stand by, to support, stand for, to represent, or stand out, to be noticeable, show greater semantic divergence. This makes English phrasal verbs particularly challenging for speakers of other Germanic languages who might initially expect a more direct correspondence in meaning. The overanalysis perspective. Should we break them down? A common approach to teaching phrasal verbs involves analyzing the individual meaning of the verb and the particle, then trying to deduce the combined meaning. For example, come, to move towards the speaker, plus into an enclosed space, come in, to enter. This works well for literal phrasal verbs. Divergent perspective. Many linguists and educators argue against this overanalysis for opaque phrasal verbs. They contend that trying to logically derive the meaning of give up from give and up is futile and can even be misleading. The meaning of give up as to surrender is an arbitrary idiomatic convention. For such phrasal verbs, they advocate for treating the phrasal verb as a single lexical item, just like any other word, and learning its meaning in context. The challenge lies in discerning which phrasal verbs are transparent, where logical deduction helps, and which are opaque, where it hinders. For learners, this distinction is often unclear. Therefore, a balanced approach is usually recommended. Explore the individual meanings for transparency, but be prepared to accept and memorize opaque meanings as whole units. Memorization versus immersion, different learning philosophies. When it comes to learning strategies, there are two primary schools of thought. Memorization focused. This approach emphasizes learning lists of phrasal verbs, their definitions, and their separability rules, often through flashcards, quizzes, and direct study. Immersion focused. This approach prioritizes extensive exposure to authentic English through reading, listening, and speaking, believing that phrasal verbs will be acquired naturally through repeated encounters in context. Divergent perspective. Both approaches have merits and limitations. Pure memorization can be overwhelming and lead to superficial knowledge without true understanding or ability to apply. Pure immersion, while ideal, can be slow and frustrating for learners who struggle to identify and internalize phrasal verbs amidst a torrent of new information. The most effective strategy often involves a combination. Systematic study. Learn common phrasal verbs, their core meanings and separability rules. Contextual reinforcement. Actively look for and notice phrasal verbs in authentic materials, movies, podcasts, books, paying attention to how they are used. Active production. Integrate them into your own speaking and writing, even if it means making mistakes initially. This integrated approach acknowledges the unique challenges of phrasal verbs and provides a pathway for both conscious learning and subconscious acquisition. Future prospects and solutions. Your path to phrasal verb mastery. The journey to mastering phrasal verbs can seem daunting, but it's entirely achievable with the right strategies. And a commitment to consistent practice. As English continues its global ascent, and informal communication becomes even more dominant through digital platforms, the importance of phrasal verbs will only increase. Here are key solutions, actionable advice, and future outlooks for you. Our dedicated Unlock Your English audience. 1. Shift your mindset. Embrace the idiomatic nature. The first and most crucial step is to change your perception of phrasal verbs. Stop trying to break down every phrasal verb into its individual components and derive a logical meaning. For many, especially the most common ones, the meaning is idiomatic and must be learned as a single unit. Actionable advice. When you encounter a new phrasal verb, accept its meaning as a whole. Don't waste time trying to figure out why give up means surrender. Instead, focus on what it means and how it's used. Treat them like single, unique vocabulary words. 2. Learn in context, not in isolation. Learning long lists of phrasal verbs and their definitions in isolation is largely ineffective. Phrasal verbs thrive on context. Actionable advice. But sentence-based learning. Always learn. Phrasal verbs within complete sentences that illustrate their meaning. For example, don't just learn look up Suray's research. Learn, I need to look up this word in the dictionary. Storytelling dialogues. Create your own short stories or dialogues using new phrasal verbs. This helps to embed them in a memorable and meaningful context. Noticing inauthentic materials. As you read, watch videos, or listen to podcasts, actively notice phrasal verbs. Pause, look them up, and pay attention to how native speakers use them naturally. Highlight them in texts. 3. Categorize and group for easier learning. While there are thousands, many phrasal verbs share common particles that can suggest certain general meanings. Grouping them can make the learning process more manageable. Actionable advice. By particle, focus on one particle at a time and learn its common usages with various verbs. For example, explore all the different meanings of verbs with up, e.g., look up, pick up, get up, show up, put up. By theme, group phrasal verbs related to specific themes or situations, e.g., relationships, break up, make up, fall out, get along, work, take on, hand in, set up, call off. Common core verbs. Focus on high-frequency verbs that form many phrasal verbs, e.g., get, come, go, put, take, look. Mastering these will unlock a vast number of phrasal verbs. 4. Master separability rules and practice them. The separability of transitive phrasal verbs is a major stumbling block. Conscious practice is key. Actionable advice. Identify transitivity. When learning a new phrasal verb, immediately determine if it's transitive or intransitive. If it's transitive, ask if it's separable or inseparable. Pronoun rule. Drill the pronoun rule. If the object is a pronoun, it always goes between the verb and the particle for separable phrasal verbs, e.g., turn it down, not turn down it. For inseparable ones, the pronoun comes after the particle, e.g., look after them, not look them after. Sentence construction practice. Actively construct sentences, using both noun objects and pronoun objects to reinforce the separability rules. 5. Leverage technology and resources. The digital age offers an abundance of tools to assist your learning. Actionable advice. Online dictionaries. Use reputable online dictionaries, like Oxford Learners Dictionaries, Cambridge Dictionary, that provide clear definitions, example sentences, and often indicate separability. Many also include audio pronunciations. Phrasal verb. Apps greet your websites. Many apps and websites are dedicated specifically to phrasal verbs, offering exercises, quizzes, and contextual examples. Flashcard apps, e.g., Anki, create digital flashcards with example sentences and images to aid. Memorization. Language exchange partners. Practice using phrasal verbs in real conversations. Ask your partners to correct you and give you feedback. 6. Start small and build gradually. Don't try to learn hundreds of phrasal verbs at once. Begin with the most common and essential ones and slowly expand your repertoire. Actionable advice? Focus on high frequency. Identify the 100-200 most common phrasal verbs. These will give you the biggest return on your investment. On daily practice, dedicate 10-15 minutes each day to reviewing and practicing phrasal verbs. Consistency is far more effective than sporadic cramming. Active production goals. Set small goals, e.g., this week, I will try to use come up with and get along with at least 3 times in conversation. 7. Embrace errors as learning opportunities. You will make mistakes with phrasal verbs. This is an unavoidable part of the learning process. Actionable advice. Don't fear mistakes. See every error as a chance to learn and refine your understanding. Self-correction, feedback, pay attention. When native speakers rephrase what you've said, or when you notice your own mistakes. Actively seek feedback from teachers or language partners. Future outlook, phrasal verbs as a lingua franca feature. As English continues to evolve as a global lingua franca, there are debates about whether its complexities, including phrasal verbs, might simplify over time. However, the current trend suggests the opposite. Phrasal verbs remain incredibly robust and dynamic. They are a feature, not a bug, of modern English. For learners, this means that mastering phrasal verbs will continue to be a crucial differentiator between functional English and truly fluent, native-like communication. The future of English proficiency is inextricably linked to one's ability to navigate and effectively utilize these versatile linguistic units. Conclusion: unleash your English, one phrasal verb at a time. We've journeyed through the rich history of phrasal verbs, from their Germanic origins to their current, indispensable role in the English language. We've explored their intricate structures, their often opaque meanings, and their profound impact on naturalness, conciseness, and cultural expression. We've also confronted the challenges they pose and, more importantly, armed you with actionable strategies to conquer them. Phrasal verbs are more than just a grammatical rule. They are a vibrant, living testament to the dynamism of English. They allow native speakers to communicate with a unique blend of efficiency and expressiveness that often eludes those who rely solely on single-word vocabulary. For you, the dedicated English learner on the Unlock Your English journey, mastering phrasal verbs isn't just about sounding more native. It's about deeper comprehension, truly understanding the nuances of conversations, media, and literature. Enhanced expression, articulating your thoughts and feelings with greater precision and naturalness. Cultural connection, engaging more authentically with English-speaking communities. Unlocking confidence, feeling empowered to communicate freely and effectively in any situation. The path to phrasal verb mastery is a marathon, not a sprint. It demands patience, consistent effort, and a willingness to embrace complexity. But every phrasal verb you learn, every time you correctly use one in conversation, you are chipping away at the barriers to true fluency. So, take this knowledge, embrace the challenge, and commit to the process. Immerse yourself in English. Pay attention to these fascinating word combinations, and practice using them deliberately. Remember, every step you take towards understanding and integrating phrasal verbs into your active vocabulary is a significant leap towards truly unlocking your English. You have the power to transform your fluency, one phrasal verb at a time. Keep going, keep learning, and keep speaking.